what I'm going to say is all's fair in love and war, because we are following the rules. We do redistricting every 10 years, but if there's other states that are violating the rules and are going to try and give themselves an advantage, all I'll say is I'm going to look at it closely with Hakeem Jeffries. I'm not surprised that they're trying to break the rules to get an advantage, but that's undemocratic. And not only are we calling them out, we're also going to see what our options are. All right, thanks, everybody.
And these Republicans are trying to disenfranchise millions of voters in Texas as part of a scheme to rig the midterm election. What we're committed to doing as Democrats in New York, in California, in New Jersey, across the country, is make sure that the congressional maps are as fair as possible. The people of Texas are at risk of not having fair maps. We have a responsibility of making sure that we look at every single state of the union and do what we can to ensure that we maximize fairness in those jurisdictions.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about more bad news for the Democrats when it comes to their prospects in the 2026 midterms. Now, we know historically speaking that the party in power in the White House tends to lose big time in the midterms, but I don't think that history is going to be on the side of Democrats this time around, at least as of right now. It's just a gut feeling, and my feelings could change, right? Closer to the midterms, I may say, hey, you know, it's not going well for Trump. It's not going well for Republicans. Democrats are going to wipe them out. I don't know. It's just really hard for me to see that as of right now. And one of the reasons why is because the math ain't really mathing for Democrats when it comes to the midterms. And I'm going to talk about that. One of the reasons why is because people are leaving these blue states, right? And that is why you're seeing this effort from red states to take advantage of this and say, hey, we're going to do some mid-decade redistricting in order to take advantage of the fact that we have more people in our state. We have more Republican voters. And yeah, the 2020 maps, the 2021 maps, they weren't necessarily done correctly, right? Like, I mean, we've talked about this before, how the 2020 maps, the census was off, right? And red states have essentially been robbed of electoral college votes and House seats already, especially considering the fact that, you know, a lot of these illegals are in these blue states and they count. So now that the illegals are being deported and you have a mass exodus from these blue states to red states because people are fleeing progressivism, right? The far left direction that Democrat parties went in. Yeah, this presents a prime opportunity for Republicans to buck the trend. So I want to talk about that. And I want to start off playing this clip about how California is still losing people, right? They're still experiencing population loss because of the terrible policies in that state. And this plays into the redistricting conversation just due to the fact that Democrats, they are trying to counter, quote unquote, Republican cheating, right? Rigging by essentially gerrymandering in their own states. But it can only be so effective when blue states are losing people, right? So they're losing people. Red states are gaining people. So there's only so much they can really do to counter the redistricting that likely is probably going to happen in some of these red states. So again, I want to talk about it because Democrats are boo-hoo-whining and crying. Republicans are cheating. They're rigging the midterms.
They're talking about they're starting to cheat. They've been cheating. Right now, we should be in power. We should be the ones that are controlling the House. The only thing that they know how to do is be crooked, draw crooked lines, and tell crooked lies. So I am here to tell you that if you think that you can just roll over the Democrats, it is a new day. And I am looking forward to making sure that we can respond in kind if they want to play, because we already know that our lines are already jacked up. I already gave you the numbers. You can play with them more if you want to. But just know I'm going to spend every waking day until now, between now and November, to make sure that not only these new seats that you try to draw, if that's what you try to do, that we win those seats, but maybe it's time for us to take some other seats that are sitting up here right now, because they're not doing their jobs anyway.
Yeah, again, hilarious considering how Democrats have engaged in this quote-unquote cheating when it benefits them, right? Because, you know, Democrats have apparently stopped worrying and they are now loving gerrymandering. According to Vox, which is a very liberal outlet, this was written in 2022. Isn't it funny how that works, right? Democrats love gerrymandering when it benefits them, right? When they can take advantage of it, but they want to boohoo, whine, and cry foul when Republicans give them a taste of their own medicine. Again, absolutely hilarious, right? So with that being said, again, I want to react to this clip of some bad news for Gavin Newsom, okay, who, again, wants to try to redistrict California in order to counter the Republican state. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay, they are packing up their U-Hauls and they are saying bye-bye. Once again, a new study is showing that more people are moving out of California than actually moving in. We want to bring our business and tech reporter, Scott Budman, in. Scott, we've been saying this for the last couple of years.
Well, it's actually 5 years in a row, Jessica, that more people have been using their U-Hauls to go than to come in. But the numbers are not that big. In fact, not as big this year as in previous years, but 5 years in a row is consistent. It's given our high cost of living. Experts say expect that number to continue.
Yeah.
Is it going or coming? If it's a truck on a Bay Area U-Haul lot, it's more likely going.
And I'm using the U-Haul just to get some stuff over to the new condo.
A new condo, a new state. U-Haul's latest stats say by a slim 51 to 49%, more people are leaving California than moving here.
It's just to find a better opportunities for them and their families.
For the 5th year in a row.
It does not surprise me. We definitely see outflow of people.
Silicon Valley realtor Lindsay Gridley says it's less likely remote workers moving. Now it's our extremely high housing prices sending people to other places.
So if they don't need to be here anymore for jobs, then they choose to leave based on cost of housing, taxes, all the other factors that go into our very high cost of living here.
Driving one of these to save money.
I've actually driven one of those. All right, so yeah, we're talking retirees and might be leaving, stuff like that. I'm going to try to guess some of the places that they're going. Nevada, Arizona, Florida. You tell me more.
Those are the retirees. The techies are going to a couple different places. Yes, Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon. Think about it. You got a lot of tech jobs. You got liberal politics, but you also have far, far less expensive housing. And that's why you get all those Facebook posts from your friends saying, look at the house I have that I paid half for. Yeah. So you see a lot of those.
I just delete those people. All right. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. So you see that, you heard that. Again, why is this a big deal? Well, one, again, is just another data point to suggest that Democrat policies are terrible, right? People are fleeing these blue states. And because of the population decline in these blue states, that's why this redistricting opportunity for states that have gained population, like Texas, Florida, etc. This is why Democrats are panicking, right? This is why they're boohoo, whining, crying about cheating, even though, again, the 2026ers overcounted Democrats. They undercounted red states. So now that discrepancy is even more, right? And again, that's why, again, they're boohoo, whining, crying, and they're in full-blown panic mode because they know that if Texas and Florida and some of these other red states successfully redistrict, then that's going to make it a lot harder for Democrats to compete, not because they're going to be losing House seats from the redistricting in and of itself due to population decline. That actually happens in 2030, okay, with the census being redone in 2030. That is when they'll actually lose seats. But the population decline gives the GOP cover to say, hey, we need to redraw our maps. And it creates opportunities to redraw the maps in ways that are beneficial to Republicans due to the fact that you have so many people that have kind of left these blue states and now they're coming to red states. And it makes the redistricting efforts of Democrats a lot harder due to the fact that they're losing a lot of people in these urban areas, right? So now their new maps they have to draw in order to try to counter the GOP is not as easy for them to try to balance things out due to the fact that, again, they're losing a ton of people. So, for example, in the case of Texas, which Democrats are boohoo, whining, crying about the most, the population growth, again, is not going to result in them having more seats for the state. They're still going to keep the 38 seats they have. It's just that the redrawing of the maps, because of the population growth, will give them more ammunition to draw the maps in ways that lean more Republican, right? So again, they're going to be able to carve out more Republican districts and eliminate Democrat districts because of the population growth of the state. And the reverse effect is what happens to Democrat states, like, for example, California. Because of their population decline, they have fewer growth areas to work with, making it harder for them to retaliate, right? It's harder for them to redraw their maps because they don't have as much ammunition, which would be population, to work with in order to retaliate. So again, that is why Democrats are in full-blown panic mode. There's not that much they can really do about this in order to counter. And Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has actually delivered Democrats more bad news because he's come out and openly said that, Florida is looking into redistricting as well, too. And if this becomes a gerrymandering arms race, again, because of the population decline in these blue states and the population growth in these red states, Republicans are going to have way more ammunition and they're going to end up winning, right? I mean, this is not something that Democrats are going to be able to win, but hey.
Districting. I had to veto their map a couple years ago, and I'm just like, guys, I'm going to veto it. And they did it, and Blaze stood with me, one of the few who was right. And so I vetoed this map, which was a disaster, and then we got a better map and got it done. And just last week, the Florida Supreme Court upheld the map that all the naysayers were saying was somehow defective. I think if you look at that Florida Supreme Court analysis, there may be more defects that need to be remedied apart from what we've already done. I also think the way the population has shifted around Florida just since the census was done in 2020, I think the state is malapportioned. So I do think it would be appropriate to do a redistricting here in the mid-decade. So we're working through what that would look like. But I can tell you, just look at how population has shifted in different parts of the state over a 4 or 5 year period. It's been really significant. I don't think you've seen. And you'll look at some of these congressional races, and one district will get a certain number of votes and the other get way more votes. And I'm thinking, isn't this supposed to be apportioned equally? I also would like I talked with the Commerce Secretary right when he got sworn in, and I told him, Florida, we got a raw deal in the census. We only got 1 seat. When some of these other states were getting seats, when we've obviously had more growth, we should have gotten at least 2. And so they said they were going to redo the count in time for 2026. Now, they would have to do that relatively soon because you need time to draw maps and you need time to get that done. But I think they should award Texas and Florida for sure at least 1 more seat, because when Biden took over, we were supposed to get 2 seats in Florida, and we only got 1. Rhode Island was supposed to lose a seat, and guess who the Commerce Secretary under Biden was? Former governor of Rhode Island. Did Rhode Island end up losing a seat? No, they kept both. So we're malapportioned right now as a country, I think, because of the migration, and but the state of Florida, I think, for sure. So I think there's ample justification to do it. My guys are going through the court's opinion to look at different avenues, but I think that's definitely something that I certainly would look favorably upon.
Yeah, so again, considering how Republicans got cheated in 2020 from the census, undercounting Republican states and overcounting blue states, I don't think Democrats have much room to boo-hoo, whine, and cry. Also, considering the fact that they gerrymander when it benefits them as well. So, again, they have zero room whatsoever, okay? Democrats are overrepresented in Congress right now, right? They're overrepresented. Their states are overrepresented. So, I don't understand what they're crying about. Actually, I do understand what they're crying about because, again, this is not looking like 2018, right? I've already reacted to a video of CNN admitting that Democrats aren't really looking that good going into the 2026 midterms. And then you have NBC, their data analyst is basically saying the same thing, that it ain't looking too good for Democrats. This is not the same political environment that it was back then. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into more bad news for Democrats.
Steve Kornacki is at the big board. So, Steve, break down what makes 2026 different than 2018.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Ryan, because when you look at the bottom line numbers, that's what you have on the screen right now, the balance of power in the House for vacancies. Essentially, if these vacancies were filled, it would probably be 220 Republican seats, 215 Democratic seats. As thin a majority as you could get for Republicans. That means if Republicans take that majority into the midterms next year, they can afford a loss, a net loss of no more than 2 seats. And you know the history of midterms. The White House party almost always loses seats. You mentioned 2018 when Republicans lost 40 seats in Donald Trump's first midterm. So how could he actually be in a position where we're talking about the House being in play next year, at least potentially? Well, it's because the makeup of that Republican majority that got decimated in 2018 is very different from the makeup of the Republican majority right now. And that's what we want to show you right here. Republicans in 2018 were exposed all over the place. Check this out here. Republicans in 2018 in districts that had been carried by Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election, anti-Trump districts, there were 25 of them in the 2018 midterms. There are only 3 Republicans right now representing districts that Donald Trump didn't carry in the last presidential election. How about the next rung here? Call these sort of marginally pro-Trump districts. These are districts that Trump won by less than 7.5 points. There were 23 of these in 2018 midterms. There's almost a similar number now, 19, not quite as high. But we're highlighting these 2 groups because this is where Republicans suffered almost all of their damage in the 2018 midterms. Of those 25 from anti-Trump districts in 2018, Republicans lost 22 of those seats. Of the 23 that were marginally pro-Trump, Republicans lost 2/3 of them. You can't see it because of the red on red there, but 15 of the 23. 22 and 15. 37 losses of seats by Republicans in these 2 categories in 2018. That's almost all of the losses that they suffered. It was a 40-seat defeat for them. And you can see right now, again, only 3 in anti-Trump districts and a slightly smaller number, 19 in those marginally pro-Trump districts. You could play this out and look at the other types of districts here. There were a couple of upsets in 2018 of Republicans in solidly pro-Trump districts, and then there were no Republican losses in this category, the Trump landslide districts in 2018. And look, the Republicans have fewer overall seats now, but there are more Republicans in truly safe Trump landslide districts. So if you're looking ahead to 2026 and what Republicans are trying to pull off right here, it would essentially be, look, can you protect, can you really severely limit your loss in these 2 categories? This is where the damage was done in 18. If Republicans could hold the losses here to somewhere in, say, the mid-high single digits, that's where this topic now that's starting to get some attention of redistricting could come into play. Republicans in 2 states in particular, Ohio and Texas, poised, it would appear, to do mid-decade redistricting here ahead of next year's congressional elections, midterm elections. And what could that mean? We'll take a look in Texas right now. The current House balance from the Texas delegation is 25-13 for the Republicans, and the current balance in Ohio is 10-5 for the Republicans. Now, the estimates vary. We don't know what Republicans are going to end up doing, all the sort of caveats you want on that, but 25-13 could, Dave Wasserman from Cook Political Report, who knows this stuff well, said they could maximally get to 30-8 for Republicans, depending on how they do the math. 10-5 at its peak for Republicans, they could potentially redraw this to make it 13-2. So what would that be? That would be a gain, if both of those things happened, of 8 seats for Republicans. So think about that. If they were able to get something in that ballpark out of Texas and out of Ohio, and you went back to what we just showed you right here, if they limit the damage here and offset it with Texas and Ohio, they could actually be in the game to hold on to their majority. Now, there's so many ifs in here, Ryan. We're talking about, we don't know what the political climate's going to be like in the fall of 18. If it's a truly, a hostile political environment for Trump, no amount of map redrawing can probably undo that damage. There's even talk for Democrats now of trying to counter this in redistricting in some blue states as well. But bottom line, when Republicans look at that, compare it to 2018, and throw in those potential redraws in Ohio and Texas, the math does start to get potentially interesting, at least.
Yeah. And again, I'm going with the math here. And the math that this guy is pointing out, to me, signals that Democrats don't have that much ammunition, right? They don't have the ammunition that they had in 2018 in order to flip a lot of seats. right? They're going to have to actually start flipping some super pro-Trump districts in order to have a real chance, right? Now, either way, I think what's going to end up happening is that if Democrats do win, it's going to be by a slim margin. They're not going to win by a lot if they do win. And if Republicans win, they're going to expand their majority enough to where Trump is going to have more ammunition to pass more major legislation going into the second half of his second term, which will be a big deal going into the election. It's going to be a huge deal because Democrats are not going to be able to stop him from doing anything, and he's going to have a lot to work with, okay, going into the 2028 election. Not that he's, running, but, hey, it's just good for the GOP overall. So, again, now you can see why these red states are looking at redistricting, okay? They're taking advantage of the fact that their states have experienced population growth, and that population growth has presented opportunities. And this honestly really is just a result of bad governance, right? Democrats can boo-hoo on and cry cheating all they want, but the reason why people are leaving these blue states is because of bad Democrat policies. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Their policies are bad. People are leaving their states. They're going to red states, and red states are saying, okay, we got a whole lot of people that we didn't have. Like, we're not represented properly, right? We need to be represented properly, right? And that's what this is about. I mean, come on. I mean, Republicans already cheated in the 2020 census. So, I mean, Democrats, they're already overrepresented. So, at the end of the day, we're just righting a wrong, right? They're righting it wrong, and Democrats can cry about it all they want, but it's their own fault. It's their own fault because of just how badly their states are governed by their leadership. So they should point the fingers at themselves, because if it wasn't for the population decline happening in these blue states, this opportunity would not be as good for the GOP. So that's basically what this comes down to, right? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.